No one could explain why the boardroom meeting stopped mid-sentence, not the executives seated around the polished glass table, not the assistants frozen with tablets in their hands, not even the man who owned the building, the man whose voice usually decided when conversations began and ended. One moment, discussions about mergers, acquisitions, and billions of dollars were flowing without pause. The next, silence fell so suddenly it felt physical. Eyes shifted. Phones vibrated and were quickly turned face down. No one spoke. Because at that exact moment, far away from the glass towers, far away from the city skyline that defined power, far away from the money that ruled their lives, something impossible was happening. On the opposite side of the world, under the humid morning sky of the Philippines, a single hospital janitor stood motionless on an airport runway. He wasn't surrounded by reporters. He wasn't escorted by officials. There were no cameras waiting, no announcements echoing through loudspeakers. Yet in front of him stood a private aircraft, sleek, silent, and worth more than he would earn in several lifetimes. Airport staff watched in disbelief. This jet was not here for business, not here for diplomacy, not here for anyone the world considered important. It was here for him. The janitor clutched a worn bag in his hands, unsure if his legs would move. Every instinct told him to turn around, to apologize, to say there had been a mistake. Then the aircraft door opened. A uniformed crew member stepped forward, lowered his voice, and spoke a sentence that didn't belong in this moment. "Sir, welcome aboard." No explanation followed. No reason was given. And the truth behind why this happened, why a powerful American CEO halted a boardroom filled with billion-dollar decisions, why a private jet crossed oceans for someone no one had ever noticed, was a story the world was never prepared to hear. But to understand it, you have to go back. Long before the jet, long before the wealth, long before anyone cared who this man was. Back to a life lived in silence, to work done when no one was watching, to a man the world almost forgot existed. His name was Miguel, and by every visible measure, Miguel was invisible. He worked the night shift as a janitor in a public hospital in Manila. The hours when the city slept and the building exhaled its exhaustion. No office, no title, no name badge anyone bothered to read. Most people knew him only as a blur in the corner of their vision, the soft scrape of a mop, the quiet click of a cartwheel, the man who appeared after messes and disappeared before thanks could be given. For 12 years, Miguel cleaned what others avoided. Blood-stained floors left behind after emergencies, overflowing trash bins filled with the remains of pain and fear, bathrooms no one wanted to enter, but everyone depended on being clean. While doctors saved lives under bright lights, while nurses moved with urgency and purpose, Miguel worked in silence. After the applause faded, after the hallways emptied, after everyone went home. His shifts began when the hospital grew quiet, when conversations ended, when footsteps echoed instead of rushed, when praise stopped, when no one was watching. Miguel earned just enough to survive, never enough to dream loudly. Most of his paycheck never stayed with him. It went to his mother's maintenance medicine, carefully counted and never skipped, to his daughter's public school expenses. Not the best school, but a place where she could learn and maybe want more than he ever had. To his younger brother's vocational training, because someone in the family still needed a future that didn't involve night shifts and tired hands. Miguel kept little for himself. He owned 2 pairs of work shoes, one drying while the other was worn thin, one uniform washed every night, pressed, carefully so it looked respectable, one small rented room with a single window where the city noise never fully disappeared. No savings, no luxuries, no complaints, just a rule he lived by. Simple, quiet, unbreakable. If this is my job, Miguel told himself every night, I will do it well, even if no one sees. and for 12 years almost no one ever did. On most nights, Miguel could predict the hospital's rhythm. He knew which floors stayed noisy, which rooms would call for cleaning, which hallways would remain untouched until morning. The hospital had patterns, but one Tuesday night the pattern broke. Miguel felt it the moment he stepped inside. Security guards stood straighter than usual. Too alert. Too many. Administrators moved quickly, whispering into phones, avoiding eye contact. Elevators paused longer than normal. Doors opened and closed without explanation. Nothing was announced. No memo was sent. But everyone could feel it. Something was different. Miguel pushed his cleaning cart down the hallway, listening. Footsteps echoed where they normally didn't. Voices dropped the moment he passed. A nurse glanced at him, then quickly looked away. He had learned over years of quiet observation that hospitals only behaved like this for one reason. Someone important had arrived. Then he saw the gurney. It came down the corridor slowly, escorted not by family, but by hospital security. The patient was covered with a plain white blanket. No visible name tag. No whispered identity. Just a room number spoken once, firmly. 703. The gurney disappeared behind closed doors. Miguel paused, just for a second. Not out of curiosity. Out of instinct. This wasn't normal. Later that night, Miguel was assigned to clean the 7th floor. Room 703 was on his route. There were new instructions posted nearby. No lingering, no questions, no conversations. Miguel nodded silently and continued his work. When he reached the door, it was slightly open. Inside, the man lay still. No entourage, no luxury clothing, no visible power, just a tired face. Grey hair, eyes half closed, fighting something deeper than pain. Miguel entered quietly, eyes lowered. He did not stare. He did not ask questions. He cleaned the floor carefully, as he always did. The man opened his eyes. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then the man said something unexpected. "Good evening." Miguel looked up, surprised, but respectful. "Good evening, sir." Most patients didn't see him. Some pretended he wasn't there, but this man watched him work, followed every movement. As Miguel turned to leave, the man spoke again. "How long have you worked here?" Miguel hesitated. 12 years, sir." The man nodded slowly. "That's a long time to do a job most people don't notice." Miguel gave a small smile. "Yes, sir." He adjusted the trash bin, straightened the bed sheet, a small habit he never skipped, then quietly exited the room. Behind him, the man in room 703 lay awake long after the lights dimmed. Because for the first time since arriving, someone had entered his room without fear, without curiosity, and without knowing who he was, and treated him like he mattered anyway. Miguel did not think about room 703 after he left. Not because it didn't matter, but because thinking too much had never been part of his survival. To Miguel, it was just another room, another floor, another night. The hospital returned to its low, steady hum. Monitors beeped in distant rooms. Footsteps echoed down long corridors. Fluorescent lights flickered softly overhead. Miguel pushed his cart forward, one slow step at a time. But the man in room 703 noticed something Miguel didn't. The next night, Miguel returned to the 7th floor. He checked his list, swept the hallway, disposed of the trash. When he reached room 703, the door was closed. Miguel knocked softly. Once, then entered. The room was dim. The patient lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Miguel worked quietly, careful not to disturb him. He wiped the floor near the bed, cleaned the corners most people ignored, and moved with the same deliberate calm he always did. As he lifted the trash bin, he noticed it was heavier than usual. Food containers, used tissues, medication wrappers. Miguel paused. He wasn't scheduled to empty it until morning. No one would check. No one would know. but he emptied it anyway. The man watched. "You don't have to do that now," he said. Miguel looked up. "It's better this way, sir." The man studied him. "Most people only do what they're told." Miguel shrugged. "I do what needs to be done." Silence settled between them. Not awkward, not forced, just quiet. Miguel finished his work, then reached out and adjusted the chair near the bed, pushing it neatly under the table. Another unnecessary gesture, another unnoticed habit. Or so Miguel thought. "You're very careful," the man said. Miguel paused, embarrassed. "I don't like leaving things half-finished." The man smiled faintly. "Even when no one is watching?" Miguel nodded. "Yes, sir, especially then." The words landed heavier than Miguel intended. He turned to leave, but before he reached the door, the man spoke again, his voice softer this time. "You don't treat me like a burden." Miguel stopped. He turned back, surprised. The man met his eyes. Most patients didn't look at janitors like that, with curiosity, with sincerity. Miguel chose his words carefully. "You're not a burden, sir," he said. "You're a person." The room went quiet. Miguel didn't realize it, but in that moment he said something the man in that bed hadn't heard in a very long time, and long after Miguel's footsteps faded down the hallway, the man in room 703 remained awake. Not because of pain, but because of a sentence he couldn't forget. The days that followed felt heavier, not louder, not dramatic, heavier. Doctors lingered longer in room 703. Nurses checked charts twice before leaving. Conversations stopped when Miguel passed. Test results came back unclear. Treatments were adjusted, then adjusted again. The man in the bed smiled less. His breathing grew shallow. His eyes stayed closed longer. Miguel noticed, not because he was told to, but because he always noticed the small changes. One night, rain tapped against the hospital windows, the kind of rain that softened the city and made the halls feel lonelier. Miguel was mopping the 7th-floor corridor when it happened. A sharp alarm shattered the quiet. Then another, then several at once. Doors flew open. Footsteps thundered down the hallway. Voices overlapped, urgent and tight. "Room 703!" Miguel froze. He watched as nurses rushed past him. Doctors followed, pulling gloves on mid-stride. Miguel stepped back against the wall, as he had learned to do. Stay out of the way. Inside the room, chaos erupted. Monitors screamed. Orders were shouted. The man struggled for air. Miguel could see it through the partially open door. In the confusion, no one noticed what Miguel did. A thin trail of fluid had leaked near the doorway, nearly invisible under the harsh lights. One of the machines had shifted slightly, its wheel caught against the edge of the bed. A cable. Just barely loose. Small things. Dangerous things. Miguel's heart raced. He didn't hesitate. He moved, quickly, but calmly. He wiped the fluid before anyone slipped, pulled the equipment free, secured the cable. Then he spoke, clear, steady, loud enough to cut through the noise. "Careful, equipment's jammed, cable's loose." A doctor turned, then another. Someone adjusted the machine. Seconds passed, then the alarm slowed. The room began to breathe again. Miguel stepped back. His hands did not shake. When it was over, no one noticed him leave. But later, much later, a senior doctor stood quietly outside the room and said to a nurse, "If that janitor hadn't acted when he did, we would have lost him." Miguel never heard those words. He returned to his cart, rinsed his mop, continued his shift. Just another night. Just another job. Inside room 703, the man opened his eyes. Through exhaustion and fading panic, he searched the doorway. And for the first time since arriving, he wondered who that quiet man really was. After that night, something shifted. Not in the hospital charts, not in the medical reports, but in the room. The man in room 703 survived. His breathing stabilized. The machines grew quieter, and when Miguel passed by, the man watched more closely. One evening, Miguel entered the room as usual. No announcement, no expectation. He emptied the trash, wiped the floor, straightened the chair. The man spoke. "You were calm," he said. Miguel paused. "Sir, that night," the man continued, "when everything went wrong, you didn't panic." Miguel shrugged, uncomfortable with the tension. "There was no time, sir." The man nodded. "I've seen people freeze in moments like that. People with titles, people with authority." Miguel didn't reply. He finished his work and turned to leave. But the man wasn't finished. "Why do you do it?" he asked. Miguel stopped. "Do what, sir? Why do you work like it matters, even when no one is paying attention?" Miguel stood still. This wasn't a question he expected. He took a breath, then answered honestly. "My father used to tell me, 'Your name is the only thing you truly own.'" The man listened. He said if people don't remember your name, they should remember how you worked. Miguel glanced down at his hands. "I may not have much," he continued quietly, "but my daughter should know her father did honest work." The man absorbed every word. "And if no one notices?" he asked. Miguel smiled faintly. "Then at least I'll know." Silence filled the room. Not empty. Full. The man looked away, blinking. "You remind me of someone I used to be," he said softly. Miguel didn't ask who. That night, before Miguel left, the man said something unexpected. "Thank you for seeing me." Miguel turned back. "You don't have to thank me, sir." "Yes," the man replied. "I do." Miguel nodded politely and left. But the words stayed behind. For the first time in a long while, the man in room 703 didn't feel like a position, a responsibility, or a name hidden behind power. He felt human. And that feeling, more than the medicine, more than the machines, began to heal him. Recovery did not come all at once. It arrived slowly, in measured breaths, in quieter machines, in longer stretches of sleep. The man in room 703 stopped staring at the ceiling. He began sitting up, then walking carefully down the hallway. Doctors no longer rushed in. Nurses no longer whispered outside the door. The urgency faded. Life returned to the hospital. For Miguel, nothing changed. He still arrived when the sun had already surrendered the city, still pushed the same cart, still cleaned the same floors. If anything, he tried to pass room 703 faster, not out of fear, but out of instinct. He had learned over the years that moments of connection rarely lasted. One night, as Miguel finished his work, the man stood by the window. The city lights reflected faintly in the glass. "Are you leaving tonight?" the man asked. Miguel nodded. "Yes, sir. My shift ends soon." The man turned slowly. "I'll be discharged tomorrow." Miguel paused. "That's good news, sir." "Yes," the man said. "It is." They stood in silence. No announcements. No sentimentality. Then the man extended his hand. Miguel hesitated, then took it. The grip was firm, deliberate. "Thank you," the man said, "for treating me like a human being." Miguel felt the weight in those words, even if he didn't fully understand it. "You're welcome, sir," he replied. The man released his hand. "There are many people like you," he added quietly. "The world just doesn't look down often enough." Miguel nodded politely. He straightened the chair one last time, checked the trash bin, turned off the light, and left. The next night, room 703 was empty. The bed was neatly made. The machines were gone. The room smelled faintly of disinfectant. No forwarding information, no explanation. The name on the chart was removed. Miguel cleaned the room carefully. One last time. He did not wonder where the man went. He did not imagine who he might be. Some patients stayed, some left. That was the nature of hospitals. Weeks passed, then months. Miguel's life continued the same way it always had. He worked, he paid bills, he went home. The hospital never mentioned the patient again. No one called Miguel into an office. No one thanked him. No one asked questions. Eventually, even the memory softened. Just another face, just another room. Months passed. Miguel's routine never changed, until one ordinary morning, long after he believed that chapter had closed, his phone rang. Miguel stared at the screen, confused. He didn't recognize the number. He almost ignored it. Then he answered. "Miguel Santos?" A voice asked. "Yes," he replied. "This call is from an international office." The voice continued. "We need you to attend a video meeting." Miguel frowned. He assumed it was a mistake, a wrong number, someone else they were looking for. "I think you have the wrong person," he said politely. There was a brief pause. "No," the voice replied. "We don't." Miguel hesitated. He almost declined. But curiosity and politeness made him agree. Later that day, Miguel sat outside his small rented room, the familiar sounds of the neighborhood around him. A radio playing somewhere nearby. Footsteps passing. Life unchanged. He tapped the screen. The video call connected. And immediately he noticed something strange. The faces on the screen didn't belong to his world. Executives in tailored suits, legal teams seated quietly. A long, polished table. No one spoke at first. Then someone slid a sealed envelope into view. And a voice said something that stopped Miguel's breath. "The patient you assisted was not who you thought." Miguel's chest tightened. They said the name. A name that moved markets, a name that advised governments, a name printed in business textbooks. Miguel felt the ground shift beneath him. The man from room 703 was a billionaire CEO. And this was only the beginning. 2 days later, Miguel stood at the airport, wearing his best shirt, hands trembling. Still unsure this was real. He stood apart from the crowds, watching planes come and go. Then it arrived. A jet unlike the others. Not commercial, not charter. Private, sleek, silent, impossibly large. It rolled to a stop. Miguel didn't move. He whispered to himself, "This is a mistake." Airport staff approached him. Not rushed, not confused, respectful. "Sir," one of them said gently. "This way." Miguel looked around, half expecting someone to correct them. No one did. His legs felt heavy as he followed. The aircraft door opened, the stairs lowered. Miguel took a breath and stepped forward. When Miguel arrived at the estate, he saw him. Standing, healthy, smiling. The man from room 703. No hospital bed, no machines, no weakness. The billionaire walked toward him. Then, in front of advisors, family members, and senior executives, he bowed. Miguel froze. "You worked when no one was watching," the man said. "You treated me like a human being when I had no power." Miguel couldn't speak. Then came the reason. Not charity, honor. The billionaire made the offer. A fully paid home, education support for Miguel's daughter, lifetime health care for his mother, a leadership role in hospital operations. Miguel shook his head slowly. "This is too much," he said. The reply was calm, certain. "No," the man said. "This is what character deserves." Miguel stood silent. Then he spoke again. "I'll accept," he said, "on one condition." The billionaire listened. "Please don't forget others like me." The billionaire nodded. "I won't." Months later, the impact spread quietly. Janitorial staff programs were funded, hospital wages were reviewed, scholarships were created, dignity was restored to invisible work, all because one man cleaned a room properly. This story isn't about money, it's about what happens when character meets power. Miguel didn't chase opportunity. Opportunity found him because integrity leaves a trail. And sometimes the world bows not to wealth, not to status, but to the quiet strength of those who do the right thing when no one is watching.